My name is Hazel, and I had always thought of our family home as something eternal. For nearly 4 decades, I lived in that cozy, sun-drenched house tucked between ancient oak trees and a quiet, winding road. Its walls carried laughter, the aroma of my husband's favorite meals, countless birthday parties, and even arguments that faded with the setting sun. To me, it wasn't just a house, it was a lifetime of memories, built brick by Samuel, my late husband. Even when money was tight, even when storms shook the windows and leaves rained across the yard, this house felt like a safe harbor. My daughter Rachel grew up in those halls. I remember waking her for school, brushing her tangled hair, and baking her favorite chocolate chip cookies. Every corner held a memory of her childhood, from scribbled crayon marks on the walls to the old rocking chair where she'd curl up during thunderstorms. But over the years, something changed. Rachel married a man named Oyena, man with a charming smile but a calculating heart. Slowly, I noticed her eyes lose that warmth they once held for me. Their conversations were often filled with complaints about the house. It's too old, too big, too much work, Owen would whisper into her ear. And Rachel, once my sweet little girl, began nodding, listening, absorbing. One evening, Rachel arrived at my door with a stack of papers in her hand. "Mom," she said softly, "I just need you to sign these real estate forms. It's for insurance purposes." Her tone was gentle, the kind I remembered from her childhood, the one that once made me melt. I didn't suspect anything. I trusted her, just as I had for her entire life. I signed the papers. Days passed with an eerie silence. My neighbors avoided my gaze. The mailman hesitated longer than usual before handing me letters, and even the grocery store cashier seemed reluctant to speak. It was as if everyone knew something I didn't. Then came the knock. 2 men in crisp suits stood at my doorstep. "We are the new owners," one said flatly. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises." My chest tightened. My heart raced. My daughter stepped forward, trying to mask her nervousness. "Mom," she said, forcing a smile, "I sold the house. We needed the money. But you'll get something too. Something." She handed me an envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, $500. $500 from a home worth over $1 million. $500 for decades of memories, for my husband's sweat and labor, for the life we had built. I felt dizzy. "How could you?" I whispered, barely audible. "You'll be fine," she replied coldly. "Buy a renta. Live smaller. You don't need all this space anymore." It felt like a punch to the gut. That night, I sat in the empty living room, surrounded by boxers, staring at the walls that had witnessed my life. My hands shook as I clutched a framed photo of Samuel and me, smiling proudly in front of the very house Rachel had just sold. A single thought echoed in my mind. I wasn't going to accept this. I wasn't going to thank her. I was going to fight back. The next morning, I drove to Carter's office, the attorney who had handled most of our family matters over the years. My hands trembled as I clutched the envelope Rachel had given me. The $500 felt heavier than a ton of bricks. "Carter," I began, my voice shaking, "you have to tell me there's some way to fix this, some way to stop her." Carter adjusted his glasses and gestured for me to sit. "Hazel," he said gently, "I think your husband planned for something like this." "What do you mean?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. He pulled out an old, yellowed document. "This is your husband's conditional clause. Samuel wanted to protect you, even after he was gone. According to this clause, your daughter can only take full ownership of the house if you willingly sign away your rights, and you never did." I blinked. I couldn't believe my ears. I had signed those papers for insurance purposes, or at least that's what Rachel told me. Everything she had done, it wasn't valid. Not legally, not entirely. "You mean, I don't have to leave?" I whispered, hope flickering like a candle in the dark. Carter nodded. "You have every right to challenge this sale, and given the way your daughter and her husband acted, you could even void it entirely. The law is on your side." For the first time since Rachel handed me that envelope, a spark of power surged through me. My hands, still slightly trembling, clenched the edge of the desk. I had been patient for decades. I had trusted, forgiven, and sacrificed. But now, it was time to fight back. I drove back home with renewed determination. The moving crew was there, boxers stacked neatly in front of the house, strangers bustling in and out as if I were already gone. I stepped onto the porch, holding the deed like a shield. "You can't move in," I said firmly. They hesitated. "The sale was legal," one man said. "No," I countered, my voice stronger than I expected. Not if the seller didn't have full rights. This house belongs to me. I'm not leaving. The men exchanged nervous glances and immediately called their real estate agent. Minutes later, the chaos stopped. The moving crew froze, unsure what to do. Then my phone rang. It was Rachel. "What are you doing?" she shouted, panic lacing her voice. "You can't stop this." "I already have," I replied calmly. "Read the documents I signed." Her silence was almost satisfying. Almost I didn't want to enjoy her panic, but after all she had done, I couldn't hide my relief. I spent the next few days researching, documenting, and preparing for what would come next. I found out about the withdrawals from our joint accounts, the forged signatures, the half-truths she had told potential buyers. Everything she had tried to build her plan on was crumbling before my eyes. And deep down, I knew one thing. Rachel had no idea what was coming. Because when Hazel fights, she doesn't just stand her ground, she rises. If you want to see how Hazel takes back what's rightfully hers and teaches her daughter a lesson she'll never forget, don't miss the next part. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more jaw-dropping family drama stories. Word of the house drama spread like wildfire through our small town. The neighbors whispered behind their hands, gossip traveled faster than the mail, and I could feel the weight of judgment pressing against my shoulders. My sister, June, called me that morning. "Hazel, we need a family meeting," she said firmly. "Everyone needs to hear the truth before this gets worse." I agreed. After all, if Rachel thought she could manipulate the situation without consequence, it was time to shine a light on the facts. That evening, I arrived at June's house, where our relatives were already gathered. The air was thick with tension, voices muttering behind crossed arms and wary eyes. Rachel and Owen sat together, smirking at first, confident in their victory. "She's being dramatic," Owen whispered to Rachel. But I ignored them. I had more than drama, I had proof. I took a deep breath and pulled out the deed. "This house is mine," I announced. The room fell silent. "Legally, it was never yours to sell, Rachel, and there's more." All eyes turned to me. Carter had prepared copies of documents showing Rachel's unauthorized withdrawals from our joint accounts, forged signatures, and attempts to mislead buyers. I handed them to June, who distributed them to the family. Murmurs of shock rippled through the room. Rachel's smug smile faltered. "Mom, that's not," she began, but her voice shook. I held up my hand. "Do not interrupt. I gave you every chance to come to me honestly. Instead, you sold my house, left me $500, and expected me to thank you. Do you understand how that feels?" Tears welled in her eyes. I was desperate, she admitted, voice breaking. "Owen and we needed money for the baby. I didn't know what else to do." "And you thought stealing from your mother was the answer?" I asked, voice low but sharp. She didn't answer. Her gaze dropped to the floor. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that presses on your chest and makes every breath feel like a decision. "Desperation does not justify betrayal," I said, "and lying to your own mother, that's something no amount of money can fix." Owen's jaw tightened. "She's your mother. Why are you making this a public spectacle?" he demanded. "This isn't a spectacle," I replied. "This is truth. This is justice. And if you had come to me, we could have solved this differently. But you chose lies." The relatives shifted uneasily. Some avoided looking at Rachel. Others gave me supportive nods. June placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Rachel broke down completely. "I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to hurt you. Her voice cracked, and she buried her face in her hands. I softened slightly, but kept my resolve. "You could have asked. You could have trusted me. You didn't, and now, you'll have to live with the consequences of your choices." For the first time, I felt a sense of relief, like a storm cloud lifting. They had seen the truth. They had heard my voice, and soon, they would realize that Hazel wasn't a woman to be underestimated, not when her heart and mind were united in purpose. The family meeting ended, but the battle was far from over. Rachel didn't know it yet, but her world was about to change in ways she never imagined. The morning after the family meeting, my mind wouldn't stop racing. I could still see Rachel's tear-streaked face, Owen's jaw clenched in anger, and the subtle nods from relatives who now understood the truth. But I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Something inside me whispered that Samuel had prepared for moments like this, that my late husband had left me more than just memories. He had left me a weapon. I called Carter immediately. "I need every document, every hidden clause, every legal detail about the house and the estate," I demanded. His voice on the phone was calm but tinged with urgency. "Hazel, you need to come to the office. I found something you must see." I drove through the quiet streets, gripping the steering wheel as my thoughts swirled. What could it be? Another deed, a trust. I had already discovered that Rachel couldn't legally force me out, but if there was more, well, that could change everything. When I arrived, Carter led me to a small conference room. On the table lay a yellowed envelope with Samuel's handwriting, "For Hazel, only to be opened if she is ever wronged." My hands shook as I lifted the flap and pulled out the document inside. It was a unregistered, conditional will that my husband had drafted in secret. My eyes widened as I read, "If my wife is ever forced out of the family home, or treated unjustly by any heir, all property transfers to her permanently and immediately. She shall have full control of all real estate, investments, and any joint holdings." I sank into the chair, feeling a mix of awe and relief. Samuel had thought of everything. He had anticipated the betrayal, the greed, the desperation, even the possibility that our daughter might act recklessly. This is incredible," I whispered. "So I can not only stop Rachel, I can regain full control and more." Carter nodded. "Legally, yes, this document gives you complete authority. You could even reverse any transfers or sales your daughter attempted." A fire ignited inside me, a fire that had lain dormant for years. I loved Rachel. She was my daughter, but love without boundaries had its limits. This was my chance to protect myself, to reclaim what was mine, and to teach her a lesson she would never forget. I spent the next few days preparing. I read every clause, copied every document, and made a detailed plan of action. Rachel and Owen had acted recklessly, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. But I wasn't cruel. I wanted justice, yes, but also clarity and honesty. They would see the consequences of their greed, and perhaps, in time, understand why trust and respect are more valuable than money. That as I left Carter's office, the autumn sun cast long shadows across the streets. I felt a sense of calm I hadn't experienced since Rachel first handed me that $500.com. Yes, but also determination. Hazel was ready to fight, and this time, there would be no mercy for deceit. The stage was set, the players were in place, and Rachel, she had no idea what was coming. Want to see how Hazel takes full control and delivers the ultimate shock to her daughter? Stay tuned for the next part. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more jaw-dropping family drama stories. The courthouse smelled of polished wood, old paper, and nervous anticipation. My stomach was tight, but my mind was clear. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to set the record straight. Rachel and Owen were already inside, their smug expressions frozen, as they realized the battle they thought they had won was about to take a devastating turn. The courtroom slowly filled with neighbors, relatives, and curious onlookers. Whispers followed me as I walked to the front, my spine straight, my eyes steady. I could see Rachel's panic building with every step I took. She kept whispering to Owen, but I ignored them. This was my moment, my fight, and I was ready. The lawyers began presenting their arguments. Rachel's attorney waved the original sales contract like it was a sword, confident they could claim legitimacy. "Your Honor," he said, "the sale was legal. Mrs. Hazel signed the papers. The buyers acted in good faith." I leaned forward, calm but firm, and gestured for Carter to present our evidence. The room grew silent as he laid out the forged signatures on the sale documents, unauthorized withdrawals from our joint accounts, misleading buyers regarding ownership rights, recorded conversations from real estate agents confirming Rachel's deception. Rachel's confident smirk faltered. Owen's hands shook slightly on his lap. I could feel the courtroom shifting, the scales of justice tilting. The judge, a stern woman with sharp eyes, examined the documents carefully. "This is serious," she murmured, "attempting to bypass legal ownership and exploiting a family member, especially an elder's, a grave matter." Rachel's attorney stammered, "Your Honor, this is..." Exaggerated silence, the judge commanded, her voice ringing through the room like a bell. Carter turned to the judge, his voice steady and unwavering. "Your Honor, Mrs. Hazel's late husband included a conditional clause in the will, protecting her from any forced sale or exploitation. The sale attempted by Ms. Rachel and her husband is therefore null and void. Furthermore, due to the malicious intent and deceit involved, full control of all property and assets transfers permanently to Mrs. Hazel." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Rachel gasped audibly, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Owen's face went pale. The judge's gavel hit the wood. The sale is void. All property reverts to Mrs. Hazel. Additionally, any attempt to exploit or deceive will be subject to penalties under the law. I exhaled, a wave of relief washing over me. I hadn't just defended my home, I had reclaimed my dignity, my life, and the legacy of my late husband. Rachel's tears fell silently. "Mom, I'm so sorry," she whispered. I looked at her, my heart softening slightly. "Desperation does not excuse betrayal," I said. "You have to earn trust. Rachel, not take it for granted." The judge nodded, and the room slowly emptied. I stepped outside, feeling sunlight warm my face. I had fought, I had won, and I had done it without losing my heart. But one thing was clear. This wasn't just a legal victory. It was the beginning of Rachel learning a lesson she would never forget. Weeks passed after the courtroom victory, and the house finally felt like mine again. The walls, which had once seemed hollow and cold, now vibrated with a quiet triumph. I could finally walk through the rooms without feeling the weight of betrayal pressing on my shoulders. But one question lingered. What about Rachel? She was my daughter, and while she had broken my trust, I couldn't forget that. One late afternoon, there was a soft knock at the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there stood Rachel, eyes red and swollen from crying. Her hands trembled as she held an envelope, the same one she had given me weeks ago. The $500 that had once felt like a cruel joke. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could handle everything, but I was wrong." I raised a hand gently, stopping her. "Rachel, the money doesn't matter anymore," I said calmly. "I didn't fight for it. I fought to teach you a lesson about trust and respect." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I know, and I regret it every single day. I see now what I did, and I never want to hurt you again." I took the envelope from her hands and looked inside. It was still $500, but this time, it didn't feel like an insult. It felt like an apology, a small token of her willingness to make amends. "You don't need to give me this," I said softly. "You need to give yourself a chance to start over." She shook her head. "I want you to have it. I want to show that I'm trying to make things right." I paused, looking at my grown daughter, still young in mistakes but now beginning to understand. I reached out and hugged her. At first, the hug was stiff, awkward, filled with old resentments, but slowly it softened. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. "I forgive you," I whispered. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You have to rebuild what you broke, piece by piece." Rachel nodded, sobbing quietly. "I will, Mom, I promise." And in that moment, I realized something important. Love and family weren't just about possessions or houses or money. They were about trust, respect, and the ability to rise after a fall. We sat together on the porch that evening, the sun setting behind the house. I felt the wind on my face, carrying the scent of autumn leaves. The house was mine again, but more than that, my heart felt a little lighter. My daughter had learned her lesson, and I had reclaimed my peace. Sometimes, the smallest gestures like a returned $500 can carry the heaviest weight of meaning. Want to see how Hazel fully restores her family and teaches her daughter the ultimate lesson? Don't miss the next part. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more jaw-dropping family drama stories. The weeks following Rachel's apology were quiet but full of small, meaningful moments. Hazel felt a shift in the air, a tentative truce forming between mother and daughter. She knew rebuilding trust would take time, patience, and effort from both sides. But for the first time in months, there was hope. Rachel approached Hazel one morning with a notebook clutched in her hands. "Mom, I want to learn," she said softly. "I want to understand finances, responsibility, everything you've always taught me, but I ignored. Will you help me?" Hazel studied her daughter, her heart softening at the sincerity in Rachel's eyes. This was the turning point she had waited for. "Of course," Hazel replied, her voice steady yet warm, "but you have to promise me one thing: honesty. From now on, no secrets, no hiding, no shortcuts." "I promise," Rachel whispered. And so they began, side by side, in the kitchen that had once been the heart of family chaos. Hazel taught Rachel how to budget, how to track expenses, and how to plan for the future without relying on shortcuts. They reviewed bank statements together, discussed investments, and Hazel even introduced Rachel to friends who offered guidance in starting small businesses. It wasn't easy. There were arguments, moments of frustration, and times when Rachel's old habits threatened to creep back. But Hazel remained patient, reminding herself that rebuilding someone's character took more than lectures, it took living examples, and she was determined to be that example. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the oak trees, Rachel pulled Hazel aside. "Mom, I think I understand now," she said. Her voice wavered with emotion. "It's not about the house or the money. It's about respect, trust, and love. And I want to make sure my child, your grandchild, grows up learning that too." Hazel's heart swelled. Rachel was pregnant. The news had been a shock initially, but now it felt like the perfect opportunity to guide the next generation correctly, to prevent history from repeating itself. "You're right," Hazel said, squeezing her daughter's hand. "And you're going to teach your child the same values we hold dear." Together, they began planning for the baby, preparing the nursery, and creating a home environment that emphasized honesty, love, and responsibility. Hazel felt a deep sense of pride, not just for herself, but for Rachel's willingness to learn and grow. Neighbors noticed the change too. The house that had once been the center of scandal now radiated warmth. Children played outside, laughter returned to the hallways, and Hazel realized that the real victory wasn't in reclaiming property. It was in reclaiming family. And as she watched Rachel carefully assemble a crib, Hazel felt the first true sense of peace in months. She had fought, she had won, and she had taught a lesson, but most importantly, she had rebuilt a bridge of trust stronger than it had ever been before. For Hazel, the battle wasn't just about survival or money anymore. It was about family, redemption, and the hope that love could truly heal even the deepest wounds. Months passed, and life in the house had begun to feel whole again. Hazel watched Rachel grow into her new role with care and humility, and the home that had once felt hollow now vibrated with warmth, laughter, and a quiet sense of redemption. But one morning, Hazel realized the true gift was yet to arrive, not in bricks, money, or deeds, but in the small, fragile heartbeat that reminded her family of hope. Rachel went into labor early one crisp morning. Hazel rushed to her side, heart racing, and stayed through the hours of contractions, holding her daughter's hand and whispering encouragement. When finally a tiny, crying bundle was placed into Hazel's arms, she felt an overwhelming surge of emotion she hadn't experienced in years. Tiny fingers grasped hers, pink skin warm against her cheek. Rachel whispered softly, tears streaming down her face, "Mom, meet Hope." Hope, the name felt like a promise, a symbol that despite mistakes, betrayal, and hardships, life always offered a chance to start over. Hazel gazed down at the baby's wide, curious eyes and felt her heart swell. She realized that the battles she had fought, the pain she had endured, and the lessons she had taught Rachel were all part of a journey that had led to this very moment. Weeks turned into months. Hazel and Rachel spent countless hours together, teaching Hope the values they both held dear: kindness, honesty, patience, and love. Hazel could see her daughter transforming, taking every lesson seriously. No longer the girl who once handed her mother $500 to survive. Rachel had grown, matured, and learned that family was more than possessions. It was trust, respect, and the willingness to rebuild what was broken. One sunny afternoon, Hazel gathered Rachel and Hope on the porch. She pulled out a set of legal documents, the final part of her plan. With a gentle smile, she explained, "Rachel, this house, this property, and everything else will remain in the family. But there's one condition. You must always act with honesty and love. Any attempt to exploit or deceive will transfer control to charity. It's a safeguard, not punishment." Rachel looked at her, eyes wide, and nodded solemnly. "I understand, Mom. I will never take this for granted. I promise." Hazel pulled Hope into her arms once more, rocking her gently. She realized that revenge had never been the goal. Her victory had always been about love, guidance, and protecting what mattered most. By fighting back, she had not only reclaimed her home and dignity but had also saved her daughter from repeating mistakes. She had lived through. As the sun dipped behind the horizon, Hazel felt a profound peace. The house was full of life again, the walls echoing with laughter, and her heart overflowed with gratitude. She had given Rachel a chance to be better, to grow, and to raise a child in a world built on trust and care. And sometimes, Hazel thought, that is the greatest gift of all. If you loved Hazel's incredible journey and want to see more jaw-dropping family drama stories, don't miss the next part. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional, viral storytelling.